Okay, here we are again, back for another live stream. Now, I'm just doing my sound check and making sure everything is working correctly. This is a video that I had considered doing a long time ago. The question keeps popping up, and so therefore I'm going to try and answer the question today. And I'm going to do a video so I can cover as many people as possible. Now, you'll find the start time down in the description for anybody who wants to skip past all of my rambling and my setup and so forth. So by all means, jump past this, and I always put the start time down in the description. Now, normally with my live streams, I will do a presentation first. I present all the information that I have, and then I will open it up for questions and answers after the live stream. So even though I sign out or I say goodbye, don't leave. I'm still going to be around, so and you can talk with me about pretty much anything you like, okay? But this particular subject is the one I'm sort of keyed up and prepared for. All right, so let's get started with the live stream for today and have a few images and pictures for you. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e and what are some of the best adventures for a beginner dungeon master. What sort of adventures can you run that will make your life easy and you can manage? And I have selected the ones that I think are most suitable. These are based on my personal experience, and they're also based on the things that I've looked at and assessed based on my idea of what I consider easy. There are a couple of things that I require for an adventure to be worthwhile fitting into this category. And the things I'm looking for are, I want a simple adventure. I want something that's simple to run. It doesn't require me to have too many moving parts. I really want something that sits between level 1 and 5, or low level play. And if I can't get low level play, then I want a series of short adventures. So short adventures that don't take a long time, and I can fit them together like a jigsaw puzzle and create a campaign or a short arc of stories if I need to. So those are the requirements I have for an adventure falling into the beginner realm. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Now, the very first one I would recommend is Prepared. This is a dozen adventures for 5th edition. It is produced by Kobold Press. I've already done a review on this particular book. It's quite small. It's a bit on the expensive side. But the great thing about this is it's a selection of adventures from level 1 through to level 15. And they are simply one-shots. Okay, it's a one-shot. It's one page of adventure. You get a map, you get some information, and that's it. So you can prepare one of these adventures in about 5 minutes. It's really, really simple. And I have used these successfully at my table more than a few times. So I'm sure you'll be able to do the same. There is another book coming out called Prepared 2, also by the same author, and also by Kobold Press. This is a dozen one-shot adventures for 5th edition. Now, it follows the same sort of concept as the first Prepared book. Those are my first picks. I am currently waiting for this book to come in. I've ordered the book and I will do a review of the book, but I've heard good things so far with regard to Prepared 2, but I haven't actually used the book myself. The next one, certainly one of my favourites, and that is using the Book of Layers. The Book of Layers, also made by Kobold Press. Now, this particular set of adventures, this is a bit thicker. The Prepared books are quite small and thin, but this is full of adventures that are about 4 or 5 pages long, and it covers levels 1 to 15. And this is just the right size for a new or beginner dungeon master, or a dungeon master that wants to just drop something into their campaign and fill out a bit of space or have a little bit of a side quest going on. So these are all really, really good adventures. I have run some of these and my players had a great time. There is a problem with the Prepared books, and in particular the Book of Layers. and that is it's made by Kobold Press. It's not made by Wizards of the Coast, and as a result, a lot of the monsters you'll find in the Book of Lairs in particular require you to have the Tome of Beasts, which I do have. It's an expensive book. It's really your go-to. If you're going to buy the monster manual, then buying the Tome of Beasts would be the next go-to. So here's my suggestion to you. You either buy the Tome of Beasts so you can use the other 3 books I've talked about, or you ignore the Tome of Beasts. The monsters in there are much more difficult and much more dangerous and much more interesting actually, but you can take out those monsters and just interject or replace them with something from the monster manual or the free online Dungeons & Dragons DM PDF, which has a list of stat blocks for monsters. So you could do something like that. It might detract from the adventures a little bit, but certainly doable. The prepared adventure is not so much of an issue. A lot of the monsters in there are directly from the monster manual. The adventures do not include the stat blocks. So if you were looking for stat blocks in the adventures, no, that's not the format that they have. Okay, I haven't talked about the Lost Mine of Phandelver, but I am going to talk about the Lost Mine of Phandelver. It is the Dungeons & Dragons 5e starter set adventure. I've done a huge series on this particular adventure. It is not necessarily classified by a few people as being a good adventure for dungeon masters to run, but it is hugely popular, and actually I think it's a good way to start playing the game myself. But if I had a choice, I would go with Prepared 2, Book of Lairs. This is going to cover levels 1 to 5, which is great. It's got enough meat there. It's about 30 pages, roughly about 30 pages long. It has all of the monster stat blocks in the back, so you don't have to go looking for them. You don't have to go and buy another book, which is always nice. And to be fair, if you have a look at the videos that I've done, it's actually not as difficult to run as you might think. It's only the weakest part is the start. So that is my recommendations in terms of the basics. Now we're starting to venture into unknown realms. This is where things get a little bit more complicated, and I'm going to say the Stranger Things Dungeons & Dragons starter set. Hunt for the Thessal Hydra. I have done a review on Hunt for the Thessal Hydra. It covers, you start at level 3 rather than level 1 or 2, so the chances of your characters dying are very low. Good for players who might be interested in the Stranger Things Netflix TV series, and I've done a how to prepare for the Hunt for Thessal Hydra and a couple of videos regarding that particular adventure. Not as many as I would like, and I think it's actually a pretty solid adventure. It's probably going to cover about 1 or 2 sessions, maybe between 4 to 6 hours worth of play, maybe even just 2 hours. It just depends. It is not just combat. There is plenty of opportunity to have a social interaction, lots of exploration, and lots of beasties to fight if you really want to. And certainly there is a Thessal Hydra at the end of this adventure that you'll find the players have to deal with. So I would highly recommend this if you're looking for something as a one-shot to get people going who are having a hard time getting their head around getting into the game. So there's no dragon as such, but there is the Thessal Hydra. Okay? All right, now we're getting more complicated. These are books that you can use as a beginner that will add to your game, but they have a tiering system. They are a collection of short adventures, and the first one is The Tales from the Yawning Portal. This is a collection of old adventures updated for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. They've already been tested and already been tried out. And this covers from levels 1 right through to, well, let's say level 15. But you're dealing with the Tomb of Horrors. Tomb of Horrors is renowned or infamous for its deadliness. But you do start off with the Sunless Citadel, which is a very good starting adventure if you want to start with something like that. It has adventures that range, and you can just run each adventure right after the next one if you really wanted to, or just take parts and then replace them with something else. Okay, so that's my suggestion to you. And now the last one I haven't done a review on. but I'm still thinking it's a good idea. It's a collection, again, of older adventures updated for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And that's the Ghosts of Salt Marsh. Why not? The Ghosts of Salt Marsh, a collection of nautical or nautical-based adventures that you can run. It's going from levels 1 through to level 12. It's going to cover all sorts of different things, plenty of variety, but it's got a nautical theme, if that's what you're wanting. And there's no reason why you couldn't jump between something like the Ghosts of Salt Marsh and Tales of the Yawning Portal, or if you really wanted to get spice things up, mix it up by using Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which I don't have an image for, but Dungeon of the Mad Mage has come out just recently. I've done a review of it. I haven't actually run the adventure myself. Those are my recommendations for a beginner dungeon master. Now, the order that I selected is the order in difficulty to run. So starting at the very beginning, those are the easiest ones to run. And then as we go through the video, you'll find that they get more complicated. Something like the Ghosts of Salt Marsh, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and certainly Dungeon of the Mad Mage. They're more complicated because they are longer and there's more going on. So just things to bear in mind. Now, what happens if I want something else? Where else can I go and get advice about really good Dungeons & Dragons adventures that are easy for me to manage as a dungeon master who's a new dungeon master or a beginner dungeon master, or somebody who really just wants just bite-sized adventures they can link together? Mr. Tarask. Mr. Tarask has been around on YouTube for about a year, maybe a little bit longer, I can't remember exactly. He runs a channel doing reviews on Dungeons & Dragons and RPG stuff. His channel is excellent for finding out what's out there. He does a lot of reviews, not so much on Wizards of the Coast content. His content tends to revolve around shorter adventures and a lot of stuff coming out of Kobold Press and Paizo, or Pathfinder. Pathfinder adventures, a lot of them are a lot shorter, easier to run. Certainly it's not Dungeons & Dragons 5e, but I have found over the years that converting older adventures and Pathfinder adventures to Dungeons & Dragons 5e is actually not particularly difficult. So if you're willing to do a little bit of work, that's certainly another option. But he will review adventures compatible for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and I highly recommend going and checking out his channel. So if you have any questions or feedback, use the comments section right now. I have plenty of videos for dungeon masters and players. If you want advice on the Lost Mine of Phandelver, or the Hunt for the Thessal Hydra, or the Curse of Strahd if you're trying to run the Curse of Strahd, or just general dungeon master advice, I have plenty of videos that can help you out there. I have a Patreon page where you can support me, pay a little bit of money, and I keep doing this sort of thing. I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon where you can buy stuff online, and I get a small commission that helps the channel out. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And as it happens, I do quite a few videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Oh, bit of mucus. Right, okay, I'm not gone, but I do need to get the camera on my face, and we need to have a look at the live chat and have a chat with people and see what they want to ask about and talk about, because I'm hoping that this will cover that topic. I did notice on YouTube that there did not seem to be too many videos covering this topic, which I'm quite surprised by. That's all right, fine, I'll do it, not a problem. Somebody else didn't do it, I'll do it. Okay, so let's switch on over and have a look at the live chat and see what we've got for today in terms of questions. Okay, so not too many people in here. Tasty Basie, do encounter video for each room. Oh, that's from the previous live stream, okay. Darbolds, how's it going? Yeah, you made it. Sector Black, how's it going? Joe's in here. Hi, Joe. Leon Gunnett, how's it going? Look, it's like I feel like there's a bunch of my my favorite people. Destructible Me, wow, that's awesome. I love that. That is awesome. Destructible Me. It's like Despicable Me, but you're more destructible. Great vids, boss. Much love from AZ. Is that as in Australia or AZ is in somewhere else? I'm not too sure where AZ is. Joe, what was the one about I missed? Oh, okay. So I did a behind the scenes video, live stream. Behind the scenes, behind the Dungeon Master screen, and I was sort of preparing the Cragmore Castle hideout map, which will be used later on. Grand Canyon. Destructible Me, Grand Canyon. Okay, so I know that. That's good. Cool. Look, I do have a lot of the books here with me, but as I said, I've done reviews on just about everything. The only thing I haven't done a review on is the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I haven't done a review on... Now, the only reason is it's a big book and I need to sort of have time to look at it. And then Prepared 2 is being shipped to me. So it'll take a bit of time, but when it does, she's all good. I'll do a review, I'll cover it, and I will show you the book. You know what I am like. I show you the book. I show you what's in the book, so you don't just have to believe what I say, because I could say anything, right? I could say anything and then, but if you see it for yourself, you know for sure. That's why I recommend going and checking out the reviews on the books and the adventures that I've talked about, because I do actually sort of go into quite a lot of detail on them. Okay, Bolds, greetings from the UK. It's 2 a.m. Mate, go back to sleep. You can get up and watch it later on. Go back to sleep. It's too early in the morning. 2 a.m. This is crazy stuff. I love that you're here, but sleep is more important. Joe, my party has just entered Cragmore Castle. Yes, I do remember Cragmore Castle fondly. Yeah, no, not really. It was a pain. Bolds. Yeah, I might be having trouble pronouncing things because I've got a bit of phlegm in here. So if I might sound a bit croaky too. I need to clean it out. I'm going to go and go see the doctor tomorrow, so that'll hopefully sort a lot of my problems out. I get my Flexinays back. And unfortunately back to salt water. Okay, what do we got here? Big Kid. When integrating backstory into games, how much should it come into play when using published adventures? Okay, so here's the thing. A player's backstory should be built on the framework, the basic premise that you have created when you had your session 0. If players are showing up with a backstory which has no real bearing and is just sort of out of the blue, and then you've got to try and find out how to tie it in, that's how Matthew Mercer runs this game. That's how a lot of other dungeon masters do that. But that is not how it should necessarily be. That's just how a lot of people are saying it should be done. So my advice to you is talk to your players and say, look, your backstory is too removed from the concept. You need to have a backstory where your character's goal is the adventure hook. Whatever the goal is, the adventure hook, the premise for the story, you say, this is what it is. You're trying to stop the cult of the dragon. So whatever reason, you come up with a reason with your character why you would do that. And then what you do is you wait for them to come back with a paragraph, not pages, not a book. Okay? I mean, I know a lot of people like to do that, but a dungeon master does not need that information. They do not need all that background information. That's my advice to you, is have a good chat to them, and they tie their backstory into the adventure you are running. If there are moments for them to pull out and do something cool that builds on their character, that's great. But it's got to always come back to the fact that you're dealing with a group. You remember, when we talk about the Avengers, or we talk about the Justice League, or we talk about any kind of story that revolves around a group. It's not about the individual characters. It's always about the group. And a lot of people lose that concept somewhere along the line. I don't know why, but it seems to be a new development, because everybody has assumed that everything that has been done by Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, and Matthew Mercer and a few other dungeon masters, that they should duplicate everything they do. But no, you shouldn't. You should do what works for you at your level of play. They are highly experienced dungeon masters. They can manage those things. And also, too, they will have stipulated a few conditions. You don't know any of that information behind the scenes. So that's my advice to you. Okay, yeah, thank you. I certainly hope I do get well soon. It's winter, so I'm gonna have to wait till the end of winter. That's the rest of the year. It's just started. Now I'll stay sick for the rest of the year, more than likely. Okay, Joe. They went into the front door, even though I described the arrow slits near the door. Oh gosh, did they? And described a lot of walls and destroyed, and they it looks like, dear, there's so many points of entry on the Cragmore castle hideout. Cragmore castle. Yeah, look, I know what you're talking about. I had one try to enter from the side where there was a locked door and arrow slits, and it all just turned to custard. Everybody just stayed in the forest line and just watched them get mowed down by arrows and then die. They're like, no, we're not stepping out there. They can see us. A big open area. As soon as we leave the tree line, we're going to get shot. We're not doing that. It's just one of those things. I put it down to new players not fully understanding what they're doing. And then again, death in Dungeons and Dragons is not always a result of actions. Remember, it's a randomly determined game. You're rolling a 20-sided dice. Destructible Me. Do you think a Barbarian 17 and Fighter 3 would be a decent multi-class? Yeah, it would. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Why have you taken 3 levels in Fighter rather than just picking up? I know what you're doing. Okay. Yeah, I think I understand why you're doing it. There's nothing wrong with a build like that. That's perfectly fine. It'll do well. But then again, anything that multi-classes into a fighter, a rogue, a paladin, or a cleric is always going to do really well. That's just how it is. The go-tos tend to be the fighter and the rogue. And those of us who have really wanted to have more of a spellcasting focus have discovered that we can multi-class into paladin and in particular cleric and really change the game. I should really do some videos on those particular character builds, but I'm not really a fan of doing character builds. That's the only problem. I guess I would have to have a lot of people saying, Fred, do character builds on cleric wizard and paladin. I'm doing paladin sorcerer because it makes more sense for me. It's a nice mix. Anyway, I just need a drink of water. What do we got here? Darbolds. Can't you make up a convoluted Jews ex machina to try them all to the same place and start look, see, you shouldn't have to be doing that. When you had your session 0, when you told them what the adventure was, they should have built a character who was revolved around that storyline rather than some other thing that they've suddenly come up with in their mind, like, oh, I want to be a pirate, and you're not in a pirate-themed adventure. And then suddenly you've got to try to tie in the sea and pirating. It's not really that's not working with the Dungeon Master, okay? And that's really down to training your players. Players will always show up with a lone wolf or a character that revolves around them and nobody else unless you train them to not do that. And the easiest way to do that is session 0 and tell them, look, build a backstory around this concept. Like they say, all getting hurled down and put into the same prison. Yeah, well, starting in a prison, I never found that was a very successful way to go anyway. Grog worked for Vox Machina. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Make sure it all links together, so it ties together. Destructible Me. I'm thinking superiority dice to... Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Enable other team members to attack. Again, yep. I thought that might be what you were going. Were you going with the Battle Master? Yeah. Also, I only found out about your channel today, and I've stayed up bringing binging. Don't binge. You can look. My videos are not going anywhere. Okay, you can go and watch them. Go back to sleep, and you can watch them later on. I'm going to do DM and play my first ever game on Friday, so I'm all pumped up to learn. Friday. Oh, if you're in the UK, Friday. All right, now I understand. You don't have too much time left, do you? But do it when you're not sleeping. You need the sleep. Destructible Me. Yeah, I could see how CBs could get tenuous. Yeah. The big kid. How much homebrew rules or extra stuff do you have in your games, or do you stick to the material as written as much as possible? Okay, so here's the thing. When it comes to the game rules, I tend to stick to what is in the player's handbook. I do have what I would call our sort of Dungeon Master variant rules, but they are variant rules that the players don't need to know about, and I can present them as an option, or they can ignore them. I often will have, if I use a variant rule, such as flanking, I will say to my players, look, you want to have flanking in the game? Sure, but that also means that I'm going to have flanking as well. And if I have flanking, guess what? I have more monsters than you do. You'll be outnumbered most of the time. So that means that flanking is going to work in my favour more than it works in your favour. Would you still like to do this? And they usually say, after thinking about it, say no. I have a variant rule for rolling critical hits, which I've done a video on. I've done videos on most of these things. And basically, they can use my variant rule, or they can ignore it. As far as do I change pre-made adventures and do I create my own homebrew stuff? Yes, I have created my own homebrew adventures. I don't have a lot of time now, but I do change the adventure even if I'm running a pre-made adventure. Sometimes I will leave it. Sometimes I'll see something and I want to add something there. I feel like it's missing something, so I'll do something different. And that's quite common. And I think that's a common sort of thing for a lot of people to do. So I do use homebrew adventures. I do have homebrew rules, but as I said, they are things that players can ignore and just stick with the basics if they want to. And it would be difficult for me to run this YouTube channel and to have too many variant rules running that are different from the core rules and still get my head around the rules. I would start making too many mistakes. And I do make mistakes from time to time. So yeah, that's just, I guess that's part and part. Did that answer your question? I hope that answered your question, big kid. Destructible Me, in reply to character builds. Okay. Yeah, I can see how, yeah. Look, a lot of channels do character building, and they do very well. Those YouTube channels do really well. I could do that sort of thing, but do you know what I find with character building is it's such a contentious subject. There's always somebody who says, no, it shouldn't be done that way. You don't know what you're talking about. And they start getting angry and abusive. I don't really feel like jumping onto YouTube and doing live streams or even edited videos. And because I can still read all of the comments and respond, and I do. I don't really want to read that sort of nonsense. And unfortunately, I know one of the aspects, the negative aspects to Dungeons and Dragons and nerds, and people who play the game and take it very, very seriously, is they get very passionate and they get very opinionated, and they get very, and certainly I can too, they get very sort of set in their ways, and everybody else is wrong, and I want to prove how smart I am, and I just don't really feel like measuring those sorts of things. I don't want to measure sausages. I'm not interested. So that's why I tend to stay away from it and leave the big channels to sort it out, because they usually just ignore you anyway. Not everybody, I know, depending on when you pump out your comments, the early stages, they will respond, and but yeah, generally, after a certain point, there's too many comments coming through, and it's the negative stuff they just ignore, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, Leon Gunnett. My last campaign was set in a time in Faerun where Dragonborns didn't exist. One of my players made a Dragonborn, Spartacus, and spied PC from the other side of the continent. Well, see, your discussion with him, did you say there aren't Dragonborns in my campaign, and even if you had a Dragonborn, then I don't want to have a rare race in there. You're not going to be the only Dragonborn. So they should have, if they understood what was going on, they should not have built that character. Now, I love playing Dragonborn, and so I can understand their desire to do that, but if that's the campaign you're running, then they have to go and find somebody else to play with. It's just about really how it is. It is how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. Destructible Me. Have a wonderful night. You are welcome. I'll see you later. The Bolds. Cheers. I'll take your advice on the teaching of my players and on the sleep thing. Good night. Looking forward to catching the next stream. You're welcome. This will be the last live stream for today. I won't be doing 4 today. I'm just going to be doing 2. I'm going to drop some edited videos during this day, later on. Joe, I really wanted Wave Echo Cave to be more epic. Yeah, I had a problem with Wave Echo Cave as well. There were 7 people at my table, and they were all pre-planned. They knew exactly what they're going to do, and they optimized their characters, and they bulldozed the whole thing. I do plan on giving a choice to keep their character or make new ones to travel to take out Halaster Blackcloak. Okay, so you're going from the Lost Mine of Phandelver to Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Fair enough. Joe, I've already mentioned Halaster as a big bad to so that they get the hook set in. Yes, good. As you should, right? You get it, foreshadow it, make it clear that there's something going on, what it is, and how to tie it in. I've never been fond of people. I suppose I need to do some videos on character backgrounds. I've never been fond of a player who comes showing up with pages and pages of stuff, because the whole point of playing a character is to build your history. You haven't gone adventuring yet. That's what you're supposed to do during the game, not before the game. All we need to know is you came from some place, why you are adventuring, why you're with the group, and why you are invested in pursuing the adventure hook that the Dungeon Master has laid for you. That's really it. I don't really need anything else. Maybe your connection with your family, if your family is still alive. Okay, all right, I think we've covered everything. I'm going to take off and leave you guys to enjoy the rest of your day, morning, afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are, and look after your family and your friends. Look after yourself, of course, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.